All right, good. Okay, any younger kids? Oh, a lot of you. Okay, good. I have a 6-year-old too, so I have a first grader, and I'm doing this too, so I'm like all of you in that respect. But before I get started on the actual saving for content, saving for college presentation, I wanted to talk a little bit about MIFA. MIFA is the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. We're a not-for-profit state authority. We were created by the Massachusetts State Legislature back in 1982. And we were created with a public service mission to help Massachusetts families to plan, save, and pay for college. So the first thing that we actually created to do was offer a loan, which we still do. It's called the MIFA loan, but that was 1982, and as you know, the cost of college has gone up and up and up since 1982, and just offering a loan is not going to be enough to fulfill that mission. So we also have 2 savings programs, which we're going to talk about in detail here tonight. The 529 plan for Massachusetts, which is the U Fund, and then the U Plan prepaid tuition program. So not as maybe widely or easily understood, but a great program, and we'll talk about that. And a lot of what we do is, as Mr. Menashe said already, presentations and financial aid outreach. So we do over 600 seminars and webinars across the state every year on topics like saving for college, college admissions, and financial aid, as well as some others. But everything that we do is on our website, mifa.org, and the principals here were kind enough, because I was running late, which I apologize for, to pass out some handouts that you should have. And on one of those handouts is a sign-up sheet and evaluation form. So if you sign up for our emails, we'll send you 1 or 2 a month based on the age of the child that you have, or the children that you have. So if you have a high schooler there, of course, you're going to get different emails than you would have for your 5th grader or 1st grader or whatever it might be. Information that's going to be relevant to you at that time. And like I said, 1 or 2 a month. We won't flood your inbox or sell your email address to anybody else. So if you're interested in getting that content, just sign up and you can hand that to me afterwards with your evaluation. But we're going to cover a lot of stuff tonight on college savings. You're not going to remember all of it. Everything that I say here is on the website. This presentation is on the website. There are recorded versions that you can access, and you can always call us later. So guidance is a big part of what we do, and that's free. Everything, in fact, that we do is free, except for the loans. You have to pay those back. But other than that, everything is free. So our email address is collegeplanning@mifa.org. You can follow us on our social channels there, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And like I said, we're always here after tonight to help you with any questions that you might have regarding paying for college, planning for college, or paying for college. Okay. Now, one other thing. If you have a question on anything I've said, feel free to raise your hand. We can talk as we go. It's fine. We're a little bit of a big group, which is great. So if you wanted to wait until afterwards, or if you don't want to talk in front of everybody else and sort of ask a question, I'll be here as long as you have questions. But feel free to ask questions. I like to keep it informal. What we're going to be talking about tonight, we're going to start off by talking about the college cost and the basics of financial aid. So, I think there are big figures floating around. I would like to get an idea. How much do you think college is going to cost for a year? Anybody? You want to venture a guess? $70,000, okay. Well, there you go. It depends on the college, and we'll talk about that. So $70,000 is possible, but that's the one you hear a lot, the figures like that. But we're going to talk about it. It's more complicated than that. We're going to talk about how families do pay for college. We're going to talk about strategies for saving, so why saving is important and what are the best ways that you can do that. Talk about 2 specific options, so the U Plan and the U Fund, which I've already mentioned tonight. I do want to be clear that, although I am going to be talking about those options, I'm not here to tell you to save in those options. Any way that you can save is better than not saving at all. So whatever way is easier for you to save is a good way to save, but there are some ways that have specific benefits when used for college, and they're designed to be used for college, and that's what we're going to be talking about. And I'm going to close by talking really briefly about a program called Attainable, which is a new program for us and a new program in general in the country And it's a savings program, much like the 529 plan. In fact, it is another 529 plan, but it's for individuals with disabilities. So, I always like to talk about that wherever I go because, a lot of people's lives are touched by that. So I think it's good information to have. Now, college costs and the basics of financial aid. One of the things I want to mention, you mentioned it earlier when you said depends on the college. College is a lot of different things. So I think we have a really clear image of what we think college is based on TV and movies and things like that. You see parents driving the kids up to a 4-year dorm. It's brick and ivy covered and whatever, and that's what college is. But in reality, there's a lot of different types of colleges and a lot of different fits for different people. So there are 4-year private colleges. Those are your $70,000 colleges, and those ones that you see on TV a lot of the times. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. There are 4-year public colleges. So your UMass colleges, and those are your in-state colleges here. So UMass, Bridgewater State, colleges like that. They're public universities, so you pay a lower tuition rate if you're an in-state resident. 4-year public out-of-state, where it's a public college, but you don't get that in-state tuition break in most cases. And then 2-year public community colleges, the most sort of affordable options, at least to begin college. You might be getting a 2-year degree, in which case that would be all you need. Or maybe you're starting at your 2-year community college and transferring into a 4-year. We'll talk about that a little bit. So the Mass Transfer and Commonwealth Commitment are 2 programs. I've hedged a little bit on some of the things that I said. The Mass Transfer program is a public program in Massachusetts that's designed to help Massachusetts students to kind of graduate 4 years publicly with as little debt as possible. And how it works is a student can go in and earn their associate's degree, get a guaranteed credit transfer over to a 4-year university, and if they have a GPA over a certain amount, they get guaranteed admission to a 4-year public in Massachusetts with a tuition freeze and possibly a rebate on tuition as they go. So it's a great program. I encourage you to check it out. I think we may have the website later on in the presentation. If we don't, I can give it to you afterwards. But it's called Mass Transfer, and Commonwealth Commitment is a program within that. But the whole thing is the Mass Transfer program. The tuition break, I mentioned out-of-state public colleges where you don't get an in-state tuition rate. There's a program offered through the New England Board of Higher Education called Tuition Break. And so what that is, let's say you want to study a particular field, a particular major, but you want to do it in a public university in Massachusetts because you want to keep your costs down. If that major isn't offered in Massachusetts, then you can go to one of these, but it might be offered in another college in New England. You can go to one of those colleges and pay a greatly reduced rate. So let's say you want to study astronomy, you want to do it at a public university, but it's not offered in Massachusetts, but it might be offered at University of Vermont, for example. You could then attend University of Vermont to study astronomy at a lower rate through the tuition break program. And that's through the New England Board of Higher Education. Those examples were off the top of my head. I don't know if those are exact programs and schools line up, but you get the idea. So vocational schools as well. Not colleges. The idea isn't that everybody has to go to college, right? College is not right for everybody. But the idea, as I said, is not that everyone has to go to college, but just that you want to be in a good position to succeed after high school. So whatever it is that you want to do, whether it involves vocational training or not, or college, you just want to have a good plan in place, right? You want your kids to be in the best position to succeed. So, how much does college cost? Here we go. This is from the College Board's Trends in College Pricing from 2018. These are national averages, okay? So this is the 4 different types of schools. Let's see if this works out right. So we're going to start down here at the big one first. These are your private, nonprofit, 4-year colleges, right? So those, when you hear about things like on the news where they say it's going to cost $70,000 next year to go to college, or whatever college has a tuition or an overall cost of $70,000. These are the colleges that they're talking about, the private 4-year colleges. Yes? Per year? This is per year. Yeah, unfortunately, yes. This is per year. Oh, give it a few years. That might be, yeah. Now, so this is per year, right? Now, this amount here is tuition, right? So, and just one more qualifier on this. These are national averages. So, in Massachusetts, it's going to be a little bit higher, right? Yeah. So, 35,830 for tuition. That's just tuition, right? This is for a year. Room and board is this lighter number here, 12,000. And then there are other expenses that are not billed. So tuition and room and board, if you're living on campus, they're going to show up on a bill. Things like books and supplies, books tend to be expensive in college. Transportation to and from school, depending on the situation, there's a lot of variance there. That could be a big number. It could be almost nothing. And then other living expenses. So all told, what are we at there? 52,500? Is that 62? Okay, 62,000. Right, so that's a national average. That's everything all together. Now, tuition and room and board, there's not much you can do about that. Those are, as I said, those are billed. Those you can't really nibble away at. Books and supplies, transportation, other living expenses, things like that. There are things that you can do to cut down on those. You can sort of, as I said, nibble at the edges there. Maybe you can rent books. You don't have to buy them every semester. If you're living on campus close to home, maybe you don't have to have the most expensive meal plan. Maybe you can live with roommates instead of singles. I guess students live in single dorms a lot these days. I don't know many people who did when I went to school. But there's a lot of bells and whistles that a lot of colleges offer for people who live on campus. One of my colleagues, her daughter just went to school last year. She's a freshman, actually this year. And they have like laundry service for students and things like that. So, you don't have to do that. So there are things that you can do to keep those costs low, but tuition and room and board are sort of baked in there. Now, I want to, before I talk about financial aid, go up a little bit here. So the next most expensive is the public 4-year out-of-state, right? So this is where you're not getting the in-state tuition break. So I think we all understand what that is. To give you an idea of what it might be if you're an in-state tuition, so if you're going to UMass or Bridgewater State or something, and here Massachusetts is fairly close to the rest of the country, is the public 4-year in-state. So 10,230. It's a little bit more here, but not huge. The overall cost is pretty close, around 26,000 a year, 27,000 a year. And then up here are your community colleges, right? The by far least expensive colleges. This actually makes it look like it's more expensive than it is because it's got this big room and board figure. In Massachusetts, I don't think that there are any community colleges that have dorms. So when you're looking at community colleges in Massachusetts, you can pretty much take that out. You're typically thinking of somewhere around, $8,000 a year or something, $7,000 a year for community colleges. So depends on the college. You're absolutely right. How much college is going to cost for you. There's lots of different types of colleges out there. The other thing that doesn't show up in those stories about how much college is going to cost next year is financial aid, right? They don't talk about financial aid. And we are going to talk about that in a little bit. This, I guess we're trying to really show you the big numbers up front here. This is MIFA's college cost forecaster, okay? So when I told you I have a 6-year-old. When he was born, my colleague thought it would be funny to say, let's see how much college is going to be for Malcolm when he turns 18. So we picked, as you can see here, there's a few different options. You get your national 2-year public, national in-state 4-year public, national average for 4-year private, and then you've got New England, right? And as you see here, New England is higher, right? And these are the target years, so 2028, 29, 30, and 31. So let's say New England 4-year private's the highest. They're sort of just estimating based on the previous increases in tuition every year what it will be in those target years. You got 86,000 up to 97,000. So that's the highest. National, it's a good deal lower than that, 69,000 to 78,000. If you go public, in-state 30,000 to 34,000, New England, not too much higher than that. And then the 2 years are, of course, the lowest again, 17,000 to 19,000, and then 21,000 to 23,000. So, when I saw the number for how much it was going to be projected for my son to go to college, I had the same thought that all of you are probably having right now, which is, oh, yeah, I can't pay that, right? I can't. But I know that I'm not going to be charged that full amount, okay? This does not take into account financial aid, and virtually everybody in some form or another gets some type of financial aid. So, what is financial aid? Financial aid simply is money to help students pay for college. It comes in three main types. The first one is grants and scholarships. Okay, so that's the best kind of financial aid, right? It's free money. It's just taken off the bill. Does not need to be repaid. So grants and scholarships, hopefully you'll get a lot, and I'll get a lot in my financial aid packages of grants and scholarships. The second one is work study. So work study, who knows work study, by the way? Some of you, yeah. So work study, if you don't know, is money set aside for a student to earn by working a job on campus every year, right? So I remember when I was in college, I had a work study job. And I think I had a work study award of something like $1,500 a year, $2,000, whatever it might be. And that's about where a lot of them are. You're not going to see a huge amount in work study. My wife just went to college. She graduated 2 years ago, got her undergraduate degree from Lesley. She got a work study award of $500. So, and she, at 39, got a work study job. But basically, yes, it's money set aside for a student to earn by working a job on campus every year. The student needs to go, if you get a work study award in your award letter, find a work study job, work the hours, and get paid the money in a paycheck, just like any other job throughout the course of the year. If you don't do that, you just lose that money. You don't get it. So, I know you're a ways away, but if you have anyone that's close to going to college and might get a work study award, make sure that they contact the financial aid office and see what they want them to do. Do they want them to come to the financial aid office to get a job listing? Are they going to blast out a sort of listing of jobs to all their work study students? Colleges do it differently. Now, when I was a student, I didn't pay tuition with that money. That was my going out money, my living expenses money. But as we've seen, that's part of the overall cost of tuition. It was money that I wasn't going to have to ask my mother to put in my account every 2 weeks. And then finally, student loans are the last form of financial aid. And people get confused when I talk about student loans as being financial aid. When I say that, I don't mean any loan that you might get to pay for college. For example, a MEFA loan is not financial aid. This refers really to only one particular program, which is the Federal Direct Student Loan Program. And the reason that these are considered financial, well, there's a few reasons why it's considered financial aid when other loans are not. In fact, the only thing that MEFA says that we recommend people do is that if you're going to be borrowing anything, you start by taking these loans first because they're the best options for students. The reason is because, and you should know this early, since we talk about student loans in the press, in this country, or what have you, people are just sort of under the impression that students can borrow whatever they need to get through college in their own name and then just pay it back later. It doesn't really work like that for the most part. These federal student loans are really the only loans that students can get in their own name without a co-applicant being credit approved, okay? There's no credit check to be approved for these loans. You need to file your FAFSA, which we'll talk about, a free application for federal student aid. And virtually everybody gets approved for these loans by filing the FAFSA. There are some cases where students are ineligible, but for the most part, they're approved. So, they've got a lot of benefits associated with them. Students don't have to pay them back while they're in college. They can put them into a deferment. They can, the payment begins 6 months after the students graduate. If they wanted to stretch that repayment out, the standard term is 10 years. If the repayment's too heavy, the repayment amount, they can stretch that out to 20, 25, 30 years sometimes, make the payment as low as 10% of their discretionary income every month. They can then have hardship forbearances, there are forgiveness options. All these things are available with federal student loans that are just not available with any other types of loans. And Once you as well as the student. I've heard it many, many times at MIFA. I've been at MIFA for a while. I've heard many parents say, it's not really my loan, I'm just a co-applicant. But if you're a co-applicant, that's your loan too. So know that. Now the reason that you might have to borrow in addition to these loans is that these have loan limits built into them. So for freshmen can borrow $5,500 a year in federal student loans. Sophomores, $6,500, juniors, $7,500, and it stays at $7,500 again for seniors. So it's about $27,000 over 4 years that students can borrow in their own name. So those are the three types of financial aid: grants and scholarships, work study, federal student loans. Where it comes from, you might have guessed a lot already. Federal government is a big fountain of financial aid. You might have heard of Pell Grants. Work study is a federal program, and federal student loans. There are also tax incentives and tax credits that you get for paying tuition. The state government, the agency that handles the state financial aid programs is called the Office of Student Financial Assistance, or OSPA. And most of what they do is grants based on need, which we'll talk about in a minute. Colleges and the universities give out a lot of financial aid every year. And outside scholarships, so outside private agencies. And for outside scholarships, we recommend a two-track approach. For local scholarships, you deal with your guidance counselors at the high school or at the middle school. Actually, not the middle school, but the high school is when you can start applying for outside scholarships, as soon as freshman year, in fact. And then for national scholarships, there are search engines that you can use, and never pay to have a search engine done. We have some that we link to on MIFA that we feel comfortable having parents go to and put their information in, or students put their information in and search what scholarships that they can get from national companies or organizations. So it says up here, $184.1 billion awarded to students in 2017-2018. So that's a lot of money that's given out every year. And I like to say that because, you saw those numbers on the forecaster. It's a lot of money. So there is a lot of money granted every year as well. It's been about the 180 billion figure every year for the past, 5 or 6 years, ever since I've been looking at this. Now most of this actually comes in the gift aid realm, so the grants and scholarships. So there's from grants to the federal government, grants or scholarships in the colleges, or state grants, or tax credits. The largest single piece is from federal student loans, because so many people get them and qualify for them, even though the amounts are in the middle range there. Now, in terms of how financial aid is awarded, right? How do you qualify for financial aid? There's two main ways that it's awarded. So merit-based aid is one. So that's something that's granted based on student achievement, recognition of something that the student has done. So when you hear about things like academic scholarships or athletic scholarships, those are examples of merit-based aid, right? The big thing to understand about merit-based aid, and when you see scholarships a good indication that it's based on merit and not need, which I'll talk about. But when you see that, and remember, you have to file financial aid every year, and you get a package every year. So, if you see scholarship from a college or from wherever it is that you're applying from, find out if that is renewable from year to year, and what does the student need to do in order to renew that scholarship every year. So usually at the college there's like a GPA that the student has to maintain every year in order to continue to qualify for that scholarship. And then the other thing is that colleges have really different policies on merit-based aid. Some colleges give out a lot of scholarships and discount tuition a lot from their scholarships. Some colleges don't do it to anybody. It sometimes depends on the capability of a college to offer scholarships, or it might just be policy that they don't. So it really, if you're applying to a lot of different colleges and you see scholarships from some and not from others, doesn't mean that other college doesn't want you. Doesn't think you're as good as the first one does. They just might not have that policy or that capability. So it really, really changes from school to school. Most financial aid granted in the year, though, is not merit-based, but need-based. So need-based financial aid. And that's awarded based on your finances, right, as a family. They're going to take a look at what you earn, what you have, how many people live in your household, how many students are going to be in college that year. That's all fed into a standardized formula, and it comes up with a number called the expected family contribution, which is the amount that the formula feels, you should be able to absorb for 1 year of college, okay? So we'll talk about that in a little more detail, but everything from the federal government is need-based loan. They don't do any merit-based. Most things from the state are need-based and not merit-based. And a lot of what colleges give are need-based as well. So there's a form called the FAFSA. That's a federal formula, so it's every family, it's the same, treats it the same. Go through, you can do it tonight. You can go find an expected family contribution calculator. It should only take about 5 minutes to do. Put in some basic information, we'll give you your EFC. Now, there is another form as well. Some colleges don't use the federal formula, they use their own. And that form that they want you to file is called the CSS profile form. And that uses an institutional method. You can find out both federal and institutional on an EFC calculator. So you can find out, about what you're going to be expected to pay. Unfortunately, the EFC, as it's called, ends up being more of a floor than a ceiling, right? It means that you're going to be responsible for at least that much. It means that you're eligible to receive aid from that college up to that amount, but you don't always get all the aid that you're eligible for. So, and we can talk about that if you have questions later. We don't go into huge detail about it in savings because you're a few years away from it yet. But here's just a glimpse of an expected family contribution calculator. It'll give you the parent contribution and the student contribution and your expected family contribution there. Now federally, it doesn't break out parent and student. It just gives you an EFC number. This must be an institutional one. Maybe, the student, a lot of the times big private colleges want the CSS profile because they use their own money. They're giving a lot of their own money. They want to use their own methodology. And they have a default student contribution here, always, and a parent contribution. So your expected family contribution is $12,313. That means you're eligible to receive need-based aid up to this amount. But you're at least going to have to pay that amount. So that's the link right there if you want to use it. Yeah?
Is the federal EFC the same no matter what institution?
Yes. It's a good question. Yeah. Is the federal expected family contribution the same no matter where you go? Yes, it is. Because it's based on your finances as a family. Yeah. Now, some colleges use that federal methodology, and some don't. But yeah. Now, this is a shot of something called a net price calculator. Net price calculator actually takes things one step further. Every college is required to have a net price calculator on their site. And what it does is, instead of just giving you what you're eligible for, what you at least have to pay on the EFC calculator, it functions much the same way as an EFC calculator. You take a few minutes, put in some of your household economic info and whatnot, and it should give you an idea of what your financial aid package would look like at that college for a year and what you're going to end up paying. So we used an EFC calculator when my wife went back to school. We said, all right, we'll see how much it's gonna cost. And it was fun for me because I got to see how accurate it ended up being, which was pretty accurate actually. These are about 7 or 8 years old, net price calculators. I kept sort of bracing for people to call me and say, it said it was gonna be this, blah, blah, blah. I really haven't received those calls. So net price calculators are different, on each college. Some colleges are better than others. Some are more exact than others. Some, if the college does merit aid, might ask you for GPA, SAT scores, things like that. Some would not do that. They're all estimates, and they're all only as accurate as the information that you put into it. So, you want to try to be as accurate as you can. But right here, it'll give you, it says here, Framingham State University, estimated cost for the year
2020, 2021. We see tuition and fees, $9,951. Housing and meals, $11,000. Books and supplies, $1,062. This is my favorite. Transportation, $7. I don't know how they arrived at that, but it's $7. Other educational and personal expenses, $1,832. So overall, with estimated grants and scholarships, not too much there, about $300 they got. So your net cost is $24,392. So again, you see that that's actually pretty in line with the national averages there for your public and state colleges. Now, we've got work study award here of $2,175, and your federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans, which total $5,500. So, that's another $7,000 or so, $8,000 almost that you can take off that cost. And then this other loan here, I think that might be referring to a Federal Plus loan, which is not financial aid, maybe is a suggestion of what you can use to pay the rest. Not quite sure. But that is an example of what a net price calculator will tell you. Any questions on that? No? Okay. So, another tool that you can use is a federal tool called the College Scorecard. And I like this because what it's really designed to do is to treat the family as almost a consumer and see which college is going to give you the most for your investment for your education. So you see here, you can sort of filter by what you want from colleges. You can say my child wants to go to a 4-year public college in Boston and wants to study this. And we'll give you all the colleges that respond to that. This Boston College, this is just sort of one shot of the College Scorecard, but I like it because it tells you a few important things. So Boston College is at Chestnut Hill, 9,636 undergraduate students, a 4-year private Roman Catholic. It gives you the average annual cost, right? So what does the average family end up paying per year at Boston College? It's about $34,550. So if you looked at the sticker price at Boston College, it would be around $70,000 to $60,000, between $60,000 and $70,000. So it's about half is what most families end up paying for that. And you may be on either side of that, but that's the average. It also tells you how well the college does graduating their students. So they do a very good job graduating their students. So 92% of students that enroll in Boston College graduate. And then the average salary after attending, so that's 10 years from enrollment, $72,500. So is this a good investment for you as a family? If I send my son or daughter here, what's it likely to cost me? How likely are they to graduate, and what will they be earning when they leave school? So I like that for that reason. Now, how do families pay? Once they get their financial aid package and there's a balance left to pay, there's really only 3 ways that they can do that. One is savings, so past income. So any savings that you might have, any assets that you might have, any gifts from relatives or anything like that that you can use. Present income, meaning the salary that you're earning at the time. Now, I don't know anybody, I don't think I know anybody, that could pay an entire year or semester out of what they're earning in their paycheck every month. But it is worth it to pay what you can. Colleges have outside providers that they work with to offer interest-free monthly payment plans. And I use one of these again when my wife went to school for a fee, and it varies by school. Could be as little as $20-something, could be $100. You can sign up for one of these plans. And you can pay basically whatever you can afford to pay on a monthly basis, and every dollar of it goes against tuition. So if you can afford to pay, $200 a month over 10 months, it's $2,000. So it might not seem like much, or maybe it does, depends on the circumstances. But that's $2,000 that you don't have to borrow, and $2,000 you don't have to pay interest on. Because once you exhaust your past income and your present income, the only thing left is future income, meaning loans. Now, if you've got a financial aid package already, chances are that your student has those federal direct student loans, which means if you have to borrow on top of that, as I said at the top of the presentation, that's when someone needs to be credit approved, and most often it's a parent. Now, remember that students are solely responsible to pay back their federal student loans. So just borrowing isn't necessarily a problem. The problem, of course, comes when families borrow more than they need to, or borrow more than they can afford to pay back. And then, just as a side note, to have the conversation with the student before you get to this point about borrowing and who's responsible to pay and how are you going to do that. A lot of times, I know this from experience, students think that parents are going to pay, and parents think students are going to pay after the fact. So have those conversations early. So, saving versus borrowing. Ooh, okay, I'm still with you. So in this example, this is going to show you the benefits of saving versus borrowing. Let's say you have to come up with $10,000, right? If you borrowed $10,000 and paid it back at 7% interest rate over 10 years, which is not out of the question for student loans, 7%, and a 10-year repayment, you would pay $3,920 in interest. So it would cost you $13,920 over 10 years. If you were to save and have that $10,000 as a target over the same period at the same rate of interest, you'd have to save $6,960. So about half. It costs you about half as much to save as it would to borrow. The inference being that it's better to save and to earn interest than it is to borrow to pay it. And also, it's not just what you're putting away, right? It's what interest is accruing on that and what value is accruing that over time. So, depending on how you save, it's not, that can vary, but just know that if you're saving in something like 529 or even a bank account, there's interest accruing on that, and that's going to be adding to your total. Now, Mr. Menashe talked about myths. This slide here is the whole reason that you're here and that I'm here talking about saving for college. So many times. So, myths about saving for college. My savings will hurt my financial aid. So this is the whole heart of the matter. It really doesn't. So, income is the biggest factor in determining financial aid, not savings. So remember I said that there were two ways in which they award financial aid, right? The first one is merit-based aid. Now, your savings don't matter at all. Nothing in your income or economic picture matters at all when it comes to merit-based aid. That's granted on student achievement. For need-based financial aid, income is the main factor, not assets. So I can talk about this more if you like. It's very difficult to talk about it, not to sort of get into the weeds of the numbers of financial aid. But basically, if you're saving, I'll do a sort of high level. If you're saving, let's say in a 529 plan, right, for your child, the FAFSA or the profile, whatever it is, they will ask you to list that as an asset. However, there's a certain amount that's protected right off the bat for parent assets. After that, if you still have assets after that protected amount, they'll take about 3 to 5.5% of those assets and add that to your expected family contribution. Now, for income, they'll take anywhere from 0 of your adjusted gross income from the previous year to 47% of what you earned as going to your expected family contribution. So a very small percentage for savings versus income. So if you had $10,000 that they're looking at for an asset, that's only going to increase your cost by, at most, $550. So not nearly to the amount that it's taking away any sort of benefit to having the saving, basically. And also, if that goes in a student's name, if a student has an asset, they don't protect student assets, and they'll take 20% of the asset, not 3 to 5. Student assets are looked at heavier. Yeah. Students' education. So their philosophy is that the student should be paying a heavier percentage. Now, so, not gonna hurt your financial aid. It's not worth saving for college if I can't save the entire cost. Well, no. I mean, as we had that conversation, I remember how much about it was for 4 years for my son in a 4-year private college. Yes? Yeah. Yeah. So the question is if you have like a joint checking account or something, or a joint savings account in both of your names. That's a little harder to tell. I think they would ask you whose social security number is on it and who pays tax on the interest, or et cetera. Whose account is it really? So that could go as a parent's account, or it would depend on the circumstance who actually owns the account. But I think you put that as a parent asset. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Oh, good question. Yeah. So retirement savings. Okay. Well, again, it depends on federal versus CSS profile institutional. So FAFSA versus CSS. FAFSA will not look at the following things as parent assets. Retirement. FAFSA doesn't look at retirement. FAFSA does not look at the value of your primary residence. It doesn't look at value of life insurance, and doesn't look at the value of a small family business. CSS profile will probably ask about all those things. Not that they'll necessarily use it, but they'll ask about it. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thanks. So, right, it is worth saving, even if you can't save the entire cost of college. I could not save the entire cost of college for my son probably in 15 years. Well, not 15 years now. 12 years. So, but every bit that you save is something that you don't have to borrow, right? And you don't have financial aid yet, but when you pair that with financial aid, it can reduce or eliminate the need to borrow loans. So, give you more education options, so it can increase your range of colleges and range of options in terms of what you can do in college, study abroad, special programs. As I said, reduce or eliminate the need to borrow loans. It has a minimal impact on financial aid, which I've just seen, and believe it or not, it can help to motivate your child. There is a study that we love to talk about, which is if a child knows that there's money being put aside for him or her to go to college, they're 4 times as likely to go to college and 3 times as likely to graduate. Doesn't matter the amount. So anywhere from $1 to $500, the odds go up by an astronomical amount. Over $500, it's even better. So it does have a motivating effect on a child to know that money is being put aside for him or her on their attendance in college. So, moving into some examples here of how savings can help augment a financial aid award. So Kyle here wants to study a 4-year public school, wants to go to a 4-year public school to study business. So the full annual cost of school is $22,050, again, right in that 4-year public range in state. You get a good financial aid package. He's got $13,000 in grants and scholarships, a federal work study amount of $2,000, his federal loan at $5,500 for freshmen. Total aid $20,500. It's a good financial aid package. His family will need to pay $2,000 out of pocket each year. Right? So, yeah, right? Not, depending, but not too bad. So probably if you have that within your target, you might be able to do that. Although it says here that Kyle's parents have an AGI of 49,000, they have no college savings. So they're probably looking, then maybe they can pay out of pocket here a little bit. But if they have to borrow, they have to borrow 2,000 times 4, which is 8,000, right? So that's Kyle, but if they had some savings, you can see what they could eat into that, and that would go quite a long way. Let's look at Lisa. Lisa wants to attend a 4-year private school to study nursing. The full annual cost of the school is $60,000. So now we're talking 4-year public. Lisa's expected family contribution is $47,000. So Lisa's not eligible for a lot of merit-based aid. And she didn't really get any merit-based aid. Need-based aid. She didn't really get any. So did not receive any need-based grants. She got a merit scholarship of $20,000, a nursing award of $2,000, and her federal loan again at $5,500. You always get that unless there are only a few times when you wouldn't be eligible for that. So her total aid is $27,500. Her family will need to pay $32,500 out of pocket. That's, remember, for year one. Yep.
Do we have an idea of
Their AGI, oh no, they don't say, I guess, but their EFC is 47,000. I'm guessing it's high. Yeah. Yeah. So now the family needs to pay $32,000 a year. So if they need to save, right, just as much as Kyle needs to save, because if they're borrowing $32,000 every year, that's a heavy, heavy loan volume to be paying back. Rule of thumb: $10,000 borrowed is around a $100 a month monthly payment. Right? I'm using me for example. So, $32,000, about $300 a month monthly payment, times 4. It's a lot. Yeah. Oh, the duration of the loan. Well, the duration of the loan or how you're repaying it, it depends. So it could be a 10-year loan, could be a 15-year loan. It could be a deferred loan, meaning you're not paying while the student's in college, but you're deferring it until after the student gets out. Or you could start paying it immediately while the student's in college. Depends. There's a lot of different options on how you can do it. But yeah, generally speaking, you pay less over the long run if you start paying while the student's in college. But a lot of families like the flexibility of not making payments while the students in college as well. So yeah, any questions on anything? Yes. Yes. 22. Yep. Mm-hmm. So benefits of saving early. Again, very much like retirement. They say it's best to start early, using time to your advantage, and it's hard to catch up. But this here is starting saving in kindergarten is the purple, 3rd grade is the blue, 6th grade is the red, and 9th grade is the green. So $50 a month, $100 a month, and $300 a month. You're gonna have a good amount of money if you can save $300 a month from kindergarten on. But I think most of us are past that point, as I am myself. But you can still save a lot of money. Saving $100 a month, for example, in 6th grade, $10,000. Oh, wait a minute, $10,000 for 3rd grade. Oh, I meant to change that. But down here, 300, you see quite a bit, and even $50. And I'll be very honest, I'm saving every month less than $50 every month. It's what I can do. And strategies for saving, we'll talk about that right now. Starting saving as early as possible, using time to your advantage. Start with a goal in mind. Use automatic transfers. That's the big one. It's a big one for me. I work at MIFA. I've worked at MIFA for over 15 years. When my son was born, they had a baby shower. They gave me $50 for my U fund. I had to set up my U fund and go ahead and about 9 months or so after it was set up, I said to my wife, we really have to start putting money in that. And she said, yeah, we've been putting money in it for like 9 months. I had no idea. It was coming out of my paycheck every month and it was going directly, and I never saw it. So, and I don't look at anything money related. That my wife handles all of that. So, if that hadn't have been an option, if she didn't do that, I wouldn't have been saving for almost a year. And that's a big year, right? So use automatic transfer. We know that people who do that end up saving more. Take advantage of unexpected funds, tax returns, when unexpected windfalls, things like that, and go right into the 529 or whatever it is that you're using to save. Get the word out. So tell your family and friends. Huge. So this here is a gifting page that is set up through Fidelity, through the U Fund. You can gift. You can put a picture of your son or daughter there, what year they're entering college, and what they want to be when they grow up. And basically, you can just send out that link to family, to anyone that you want to contribute. So family, friends, birthdays, milestones, especially if kids are young, or really at any age. Don't even do it for a present for them. Do it as a present for you. That's what I was saying. What do I want for Christmas? I want somebody to put some money in my son's youth fund account. Is what I want. I used to have an aunt who used to give me $25 every time I saw her for his youth fund account. It's my favorite thing. So you can do that, and they do have that mobile check deposit where you can take a picture of the check with your phone and put it right in. So it's very easy to do in that particular case. But I think that's a really, really great way to do it, is to get the word out. And once again, involve your child in the process. Kids like to see how much money they have in their account. They like to see, going on. My son doesn't. He doesn't care about it. We talk about this at work all the time. One of my colleagues like, he loves to go and see his money go up and up. And as I said before, it does have a positive effect on them to know that money's being put aside for them. Actually, and when talking about this, I had a conversation with with a colleague of mine, and I said, I always talk about having your child put money. Does that ever happen? She said, oh yeah, my daughter. Every time she got money, it was for her birthday, first communion. I had to put half of it in savings, and the rest of it she could spend. So not only did that help going to college, but it became a habit for the rest of her life that she would just save immediately upon getting paid or getting any money. And just a year ago or so, I said, can I still tell that story? Is that okay? She said, yeah. In fact, I talked to her the other day, and I brought it up, asked her if she still does it, and she said, yeah, it just feels wrong to spend it all. So it's I wish I had that as well from my childhood, but I don't. But it's a great thing. Oh, this I want to talk about. This is MIFA's college planning tool. So the reason that we have this, and it's a really sort of interesting thing, and it's sort of immersive. So what I mean is, I would get calls from parents to say, I want to start saving for college. How much do I have to start putting away every month so that we can have it paid for by the time she gets there? And that's an impossible question to answer, because when you don't know where the student's going to go to college, you don't know what kind of financial aid the student is going to get when they go, so you don't know what the bill is going to be. So it was very difficult. This actually helps parents determine that. So what you can do, you can go on and set up an account. You see here, we've got Ringo and Madonna are the kids. And so you put in some money, you create an account, and you say, okay, this is what I have saved now. Could be nothing, could be something. This is the year that the student is slated to enter college. And they'll calculate the increase in tuition, or the estimate of that amount. They'll calculate what your savings are right now and what they're likely to be at the time. They'll ask you to put in what you're contributing every month, and they'll calculate, based on your income, what kind of financial aid you're likely to receive. So you'll know, or at least have an estimate, what the cost is going to be, what your financial aid might be, and how much you're likely to have saved. And you'll know this shortfall of what you're going to have to come up with at the time. So you can add colleges, you can change the amount that you're saving every month. If you got a big shortfall, you can expand your list of colleges or college types. So it'll give you that idea of, based on your finances and how much college is likely to be and whatnot, what you're going to be needing to oh yes.
Is there any type of penalty if my son is in kindergarten?
Oh.
We're having relatives and everyone we're saving,
Oh, great.
and he ends up not going to college or goes for a year or something?
Yeah.
What happens?
So the saving in a 529? Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to get right to it, if that's okay. Oh, well, I'll come right back to it. Oh, whoops. I'll do you fun first, and then I'll go back to you, Mark, because you asked. So, the 529 plan. 529 plan, the way I always explain it is, it's like a 401k, except instead of for college, instead of for retirement, it's for college, right? So, the way it works is you put money in, it's invested, grows with the market without taxes. When it comes time for the child to go to college or go to school, you can pull that money out, as long as it's used for a qualified education expense, which is tuition, fees, room and board, books and supplies and equipment, you don't pay taxes on the earnings. If the child ends up not going, you have a couple of options. You can transfer it over to somebody else. So if there's another child or anybody else in the family, you can transfer it over to that person. If you have to take the money out and not use it for college, there is a penalty. So there's a 10% penalty on the earnings, not on what you put in. That's never penalized, but the earnings. And then the earnings are taxed at your rate of income. Yes?
What if the child ends up going to college in a different country?
Sure. So if a child ends up going to college in a different country, it may still be covered. It depends on the college. So you may still be able to use it and not pay taxes if that college accepts US federal funding. So some international colleges do. If it's not one of those colleges, then you'd have to pay the penalty. If it is, then you can still use it and not pay the penalty or the taxes. There are 3 exceptions for paying the penalty, 2 which are tragic, which are death and disability of the student. But the third one is good, which is scholarship. So if a student gets a scholarship and then you can't use it for college expenses because you didn't owe them due to a scholarship, then you're not penalized for that. But there'll always be tax at your rate of income, the earnings, if it's not used for college or education expenses. I say college, it's been college forever. 2 years ago, the new tax bill that passed, you can withdraw up to $10,000 for K through 12 as well. And it can be used for graduate school. Fidelity handles the Massachusetts 529 plan, which is called the U Fund. So they handle the investments and they handle the accounts. Savings can be used at any accredited college, and actually, it doesn't have to be a college. It can be a career vocational training as well, as long as it's accredited and is eligible for US federal funding, you can use it for that. The combined account maximum cannot exceed $400,000. What that means is that if you have, you set up an owner and a beneficiary. The student is the beneficiary, the owner is frequently the parent, but it doesn't have to be. But if I have an account for my son, and my mother has an account for my son, those 2 accounts together cannot exceed $400,000. If that's a problem, congratulations, it's a wonderful problem to have, but that's it. So there's no annual account maintenance fee or minimum investment, there's no minimum to get started, and so there's a lot of different investment options. Now we're not investment advisors at NEFA, I don't want to be an investment advisor, but that's what Fidelity is there for. So you do have to choose the investment that you want when you sign up, but they can help you with that. And one thing we do say with investments is that there is an FDIC insured option. Since this is a market invested vehicle, some people get nervous about investing in the market, there is that option that safeguards your principal. So it's insured. You're not going to lose your principal. Yes? Oh, so yeah, so the question, each state, almost every state, has a 529 plan. You can invest in any 529 plan that you want. So there's no rules as far as that's concerned. There is one thing though for Massachusetts, and this goes for the prepaid tuition plan as well as for the 529 plan. There is a state income tax deduction that you can claim for your contributions to either of the Massachusetts plans. So if you're a married joint filer, you can deduct up to $2,000 of your contributions. If you're an individual filer, you can deduct up to $1,000. You can have more than one, that's fine. Like more than one 529? In different states, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. And these, when they're in the parent's name, are treated as parent asset. I mean, that 3 to 5.5% applies. It doesn't have to go in a parent's name, although I'll tell you just a brief story if you don't mind, which is when I first set up, I have 2 529 plans, 2 U Fund 529. One is for my son, one is for my nephew. The first time I set it was for my nephew. It was for his christening. And I said, okay, I know what I'll do. I'll put it into my name because then it won't be considered a parent asset when my sister goes to file her FAFSA, which is true, but the following year, after you use it, they're going to ask the student to list anything received on his or her behalf in the previous year, and then that goes as student income, which is actually the highest percentage. They'll protect a certain amount, which is pretty high, about $6,600 now. Anything over that, they'll take 50% of that as to what's going to it. So 3 to 5.5%, much less than 50%. But if that happens, and let's say grandparents have a 529, or it's already set up, there are things that you can wait until after you file your last FAFSA and distribute the funds then if you want to do that. Or depending on the circumstances, might not have that much of an effect on your financial aid anyways. So that's my little story about setting it up in a parent's name. Yeah. Yes. Yep, it would be the same, yeah. It's not particular to a 529 plan. It's anything that received on the student's, to the student's behalf by a third party. They're asking them to put. Well, that's for taxes, yeah. So there's that, for 529 in a given year, you can't exceed 15,000 to be put in, or you can buy 5 years in once and go up to 75,000, but then you can't put in for another 5 years. But for financial aid, it's not, they don't allow, they have allowance for that, but, yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, or maybe your second semester of junior year after you've already filed for your senior year. Yeah, that'd be smart. One other plan I want to talk about is the other MEFA plan is the U plan, which is the prepaid tuition program. This one takes a little bit more explaining, but I really like this program. And what Fidelity does for the U fund, which is administer all the accounts and manage the portfolios, we did for a long time in-house with the U plan, so I'm very familiar with it, which is why I like it. But it's also a great plan. It allows you to prepay up to 100% of tuition and fees at each participating college. So all the colleges are in Massachusetts. There's about 75 of them. And it's public and private colleges. Basically, the way this works, it's not invested in the market like the 529 plan. The money is actually put into bonds that are backed by the Commonwealth. And the way it works is, let's say, I always have to use an example. So my son is 6 years old, so in 12 years he'll be going to college, right? So if I say, okay, I'm gonna put in $1,000 this year, and I'm gonna say, put this $1,000 to his freshman year in college. So you put in money and you select the year or the years that you want that bond to mature and you want to use for college. Now, if I put in $10,000, that's gonna buy, if I put in $1,000, that's gonna buy 10% at a college that costs $10,000 this year. It's gonna buy 3% at a college that costs $30,000 this year, and so on. Every college has a different tuition, so your $1,000 is gonna buy a different percentage of every one. In 12 years' time, let's say my son goes to that first college that I bought 10% at, because it was 10,000. Now it's 30,000. So now I have 10% of 30,000, or $3,000. So my $1,000 became $3,000 because as tuition went up, so did the value of 10% of it. And every year you can put funds in. You can put in funds on an ongoing basis, but it's a bond purchase every year. So every August, they buy bonds from the state. So whatever you have in your account at that point, they buy that, and that corresponds to a percentage of tuition. So you can see all the participating colleges and what percentage of tuition you have each year. Now you don't select a college up front. You don't do that until child ends up going. So, people always ask, what if they don't go to one of those colleges, right? Okay. If that's the case, much like the U Fund, you can transfer that to another beneficiary, or you can always cash out and get what you put in plus the interest back. There's no penalty to do that either, so there's no taxes or penalty for that. Now, what you put in plus the interest usually accrues at CPI. So it might not get as much as something that's invested in the market, but the worst you're going to do is what you put in plus the CPI back. The idea is that you're betting essentially that the increase in tuition is going to be more every year than the interest that you would have earned. So, you know, I've seen people do very, very well with the E plan. Is if you bought early enough and you were at one of the child goes to one of the participating colleges. Tuition's been going up at some colleges 5 and 6% every year. So, you know, you can do very well with this program. It requires a $300 minimum to get started. That doesn't have to be all at once, but just, you know, you can set up a automatically withdrawing account just like with the U fund, and to get, you know, 25, 50, whatever it is, taken out every month. Bonds are purchased, percentages are locked in July. So, and around that time, they're gonna to buy, and that's what your percentages are gonna correspond to. This is all the colleges here that are participating. So it's a lot. A lot of privates, a lot of publics. The ones that you're looking for automatically that aren't there are Harvard and MIT. But those have stayed very static over the years. It used to be about 80 colleges, but some colleges have closed. Some colleges have merged with other colleges. Nobody's really voluntarily left the program, and nobody's really been added to it. So it's been very static over the years. Yeah. It's a wonderful program, it really is. Now, I want to talk for a few minutes about Attainable. This is another 529 program. It's 529A. It's for individuals with disabilities. Functions much like the regular 529, that you put money in, it's invested in the market. It's a Fidelity investment as well. They handle that. Money grows tax deferred, and then as long as the funds are used for eligible expenses, which are quite broad, basic living expenses, medical expenses, travel, education, health-related expenses, anything like that, you don't pay taxes on that. The biggest thing for me, the thing I always think is such a big benefit of this program is, for years, when we had people saving in either the U plan or the U fund, they would get really nervous if they were on Social Security or Medicaid, because if they had more than $2,000, they would lose their eligibility to be on Medicaid or Social Security. So that cutoff was $2,000. You couldn't have over that amount of assets, or you start to lose access to those services. With a Attainable program, you can save up to $100,000 without it affecting your federally needs tested benefits like Medicaid or Social Security. In order to be eligible for it, you have to be eligible to receive SSI or SSDI due to a disability, meet Social Security's definition and criteria regarding significant functional limitations, and all account owners should have a letter of certification from a licensed physician. And the disability has to have occurred or have the onset before the age of 26 years old, about 26 years old. So, you know, this program has only been expanded since it's been introduced. It was signed into law back in 2014, and then every state was tasked with creating their ABLE program. The Attainable program is the Massachusetts one, and it's been run since 2017. So it's a new program for us. But I think it's worth talking about wherever I go. So if you're interested in that, you can give us a call and find out all about that. So, saving for college, your next steps. If you're saving, continue to save. If you haven't started yet, please start. It's the best thing that you can do. I talked to my supervisor. In one of the third, because I said, you know, I have a 6-year-old. I wonder if I can do this too. So I said, am I going to be able to do this? What should I do? And she said, yes. The best thing that I did was start saving, and I was a late starter to saving. I didn't save a lot, but it just made things so much easier. So even if you think you're late, start it. Talk to your child about college. Use online tools to learn more about college costs. Where you can do the EFC calculator. You can visit a college that your son or daughter is interested in and do a net price calculator. You can sign up for webinars or see where we're going to be at. Join our email community. If you want to sign up for emails, you can give those to me. And other than, this is our great social media, Facebook, tweets, LinkedIn, and all of our videos where we talk about things like this. You can view that whenever you want. Otherwise, thank you very, very much. I'll be here if you have questions, and if you have the sign-up sheets and the evaluations, please give those to me. Thank you.